6 long years, ladies and gentlemen, 6 long years. And here we are, Tears of the Kingdom has arrived. Quick point on spoilers, I will not be showing anything story related, so don't worry about story spoilers, nothing like that here. And all of the gameplay sections that I will be showing you are on Nintendo's list of approved review footage, so there's nothing here that they are not comfortable with you seeing before you play the game. And if anybody knows what should be considered a spoiler, it's probably the people that made the game. But right here, this is the opening bit, maybe 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes into the game, when we walk out and we get our first look at the new Hyrule. This is the oh wow moment that so many of us remember from Breath of the Wild. And there's something about it that just gives you goosebumps when you look out on this crazy expanse and you realize that almost everything you see, you're gonna get to go explore. You get to go check out those cliff sides over there, all of the floating islands, that weird ball thing. I bet we're gonna get to find out what that's about. All of this craziness is accessible to us and more. More on that in a bit. I've actually been playing this game a lot over the last 2 days or so. However, it is so crazy huge that I wasn't even close to being at the point where I felt as though I could do a review on launch day. So what we're doing here instead is an I tried, where I'm gonna show you kind of what the deal is and what makes this game really tick. And I'm gonna offer my overall impressions and thoughts. And look at this. What an insane intro, right? What an insane intro. Now, one of the things that really concerned a lot of people, especially skeptics such as myself, was that this is running on 6-year-old hardware. However, it doesn't skip a beat. Since they dropped a patch a couple of days ago before the game went, public, there are no real bugs. There's no real performance hitches. Occasionally it'll drop to like 28 frames a second, but then it pulls back to 30. And the fact that you can skydive from thousands of feet in the air all the way down to the ground without so much as a hitch is just madness. It really shows you that a lot of the time this isn't a matter of like the hardware holding you back. It isn't a matter of that stuff. It's just a matter of the team that's building the game and their efforts in optimization. What they've done here is nothing short of miraculous. I mean, it really is crazy when you think about what's happening. And then you see that it just runs effortlessly on this little bitty handheld that's sitting over here that's weaker than my phone. Like, that's insane. Now, to play devil's advocate, it's not the best looking game necessarily. You can see a lot of artifacting in the grass. You can see flickering in the shadows and all that. And frankly, if you're playing this on a big ass TV or something, it probably is going to look a little rough when stretched all the way across your 4K screen. It's probably going to be a little rough on the eyes, especially if you're playing games on the PS5 and Xbox Series consoles recently. It's going to be a little jarring, and I'll tell you what, it's a little jarring for me too, but you very quickly get used to it and you just kind of tune it out and you get lost in the beauty of this world. And damn, isn't that sound just like a time machine back to 2017? Yeah, 2017 when the last one was here, when Breath of the Wild came out. Man, this whole thing is an acid trip of fun and nostalgia. Oh, I love it. So elephant in the room, of course, this is the sequel to 2017's Breath of the Wild. And when you look at footage of that game, which Jacob, my editor, will put up right now, you can tell it looks pretty similar, especially if we do a little side-by-side right here. I mean, they're pretty similar, as you would frankly expect. I saw some people on Twitter who very well might have been trolls if we're being real, and they were like, oh my god, why would anybody buy Tears of the Kingdom? It looks just like Breath of the Wild. They can't make improvements graphically in 6 years, huh? Lol, cringe. And I get the sentiment, the thing that they're trying to say, but frankly, for one, it's running on the same hardware, so of course it's not gonna be like crazy different. And two, this isn't about like pushing the boundaries of frame rates and resolution. It's just not what makes these Zelda games really, really phenomenal. And if anything, this Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, these games really show how it's not just about how many pixels you can push, how many like teraflops the hardware has. It really shows that video games are an art form And it's all about the team. It's all about the artists that are putting this thing together. And when they know what they're doing and they get the time to really put that into practice, you get something really, really special. But enough of oogling and ogling. Let's actually talk about what this game is, and I'll explain a little bit about what they've changed and what they haven't. The first thing they've changed is the Sheikah slate now looks suspiciously like a Nintendo Switch, which I just find to be a good touch. I mean, I know that it's just this game's version of the Sheikah slate, but still, I mean, it's just funny that every one of these games has their own unique look of the tablet. Last time it looked like the Wii U thing, and now it looks like the Switch. It's a good touch. I like it. So in this little tutorial area, we're going to be getting different abilities, most of which you've probably already heard about and seen in previews and trailers and reviews and all of that stuff. So it's not going to be anything particularly surprising. But the opening hours of the game are just like Breath of the Wild in many ways, where you're in this sort of tutorial realm and section, and after you acquire some basic abilities, they're gonna just open the door and let you go play outside and do whatever you want, go crazy, have fun. They give you some rough guidelines, but for the most part, go crazy. But before we get into the abilities, just a real quick appreciation of the sense of scale. And what I think is one of the most impressive things that Breath of the Wild did, and also Tears of the Kingdom does it too, and perhaps even better, is they give you these huge expanses where at times you can just barely see things in the distance. You see that floating sky island just above Link's head? Like, you can just barely see that through the fog and the mists of the clouds, but you can go there. Like, you see that and you think to yourself, I want to go there. I'm going to go there eventually. Or you look over there and you're like, oh my God, how am I going to get to the top of that thing? But guess what? You will. And when you look at the ground, you realize that there's just so much here, and it excites you and it interests you, but not in the same way that a lot of, like, say, Ubisoft open world games work, where they just give you a list of different things that you're supposed to do in order for you to complete the game, all sorts of different collectibles and things. None of that. They just show you this world and then are like, yeah, go crazy. Like, look at this. This is pretty expansive, all these islands that we're on right now. But when I zoom out and you see just how crazy huge this map is, and then you think to yourself, oh crap, there are like 3 different layers to this, you're gonna start to realize just how freaking massive this game is. And yeah, I said 3 different layers. There are, of course, the Skylands. I know they call them Sky Islands. I like calling them Skylands. Sue me, I don't care. But there are the Skylands, as you can see. There are also the ground areas to explore, as we pointed out earlier. Pretty much everything you would have seen in Breath of the Wild. Of course, this time it's massively changed. It's by no means the same as it was in Breath of the Wild. It's very, very different. And then there's a whole nother realm under the surface of Hyrule for you to explore that's just as big. Like, this game, I would not be surprised if it takes 200 hours to get through without, like, grinding. Just in terms of the volume of content here, it's outrageous. And there's frogs. So I mean, 10 out of 10 right there, right? Now, one thing that remains is the pretty lackluster combat system. It's not really changed other than being able to craft things and combine them, which I'm going to show you in just a second. But in terms of overall design and how combat works on a functional level, it's pretty much the same as you saw in Breath of the Wild. The one thing that has been improved that I've noticed, and I might have the chance to show you this without getting into spoilers or anything, are specifically the dodge timings to trigger the flurry rush mode. In Breath of the Wild, the timings were super inconsistent, but in this game, they're actually greatly tightened up. It doesn't feel arbitrary or like the game sometimes is allowing you to do something that you're trying to do and then sometimes not. It actually feels pretty consistent, and that to me is like a huge boost to the combat, because it drove me crazy in Breath of the Wild. Sometimes you'd be like, I definitely should have gotten Flurry Rush from that. And other times you just didn't. It's really, really inconsistent and weird. But this time around, it's way tighter. However, fighting multiple enemies still sucks. I will die on that hill. I don't care. Come at me, Nintendo fanboys. I don't care. I'm just speaking my truth, okay? I'm speaking my truth. And yes, before anybody asks, weapon durability is still a thing. Weapons will break as you use them. I know that drove some people absolutely up the wall with Breath of the Wild, but as I've described in previous videos, it's for a good reason. They want you to break your weapon so that you have a reason to go and discover more. It encourages you constantly to continue exploring and finding new things. And so while it's like a little tedious and slightly annoying, it's for a good reason. And I think on the whole, at least, it is a necessary evil, or it's an evil whose good outweighs its bad, which begs the question of whether or not it's actually evil, but whatever. What's not crazy is just how many new enemies there are in this game, though. Like, seriously, they have greatly increased the enemy variety to a ridiculous extent. Like, seriously, it's a little wild just how much is here. And again, I could show you a lot of them, but again, I think it's better if you just experience them yourself and I don't spoil it. I watched that IGN review that went up for this, and I thought it was a good review, but personally, I would have chosen not to show some of the stuff that they showed in that review, just because I thought that it was a little heavy-handed in terms of gameplay footage, which is why I'm playing it so safe this time around with this video. Just because, like, the magic of experiencing some of this stuff for the first time is quite rare. Like, it doesn't happen that often in video games that we have something come along that just encountering something new is memorable, like triggers dopamine and makes you go, I'm gonna remember that for years to come. That's pretty rare. And I don't want to take that from you for the sake of like easy clicks or something. So I don't know. Maybe you don't care. I'll shut up. Now, right there, we just skipped another story little sequence. Again, I don't want to spoil any of that for you, but what we've been tasked with is basically running and going to these shrines, which we can mark just like in Breath of the Wild, and then they're on our mini map right there. And if we want to mark faraway places, we can do that too, and they will also be reflected. We can pull up our map and see just like that's pretty far away, but it's really not that far away when you look at the map, and then especially when you zoom out and you realize just what we're dealing with. But setting that aside, we're going to go up here and we're going to gain an ability. Now, like I said, the opening hours are very, very similar to Breath of the Wild, where you're going to go around and get some different abilities with the help of a character who I'm not going to show probably just to be safe. But it's one of the things that these games have actually done really, really well, which is that they spend a little bit of time, for some people a long time, but they spend some good time prepping you, getting you to understand the basics of the gameplay mechanics, so that they can just let you loose on the world to do whatever. So while you're here, yeah, you're kind of playing by their rules and you're going through very structured and very specifically paced and designed encounters to learn those abilities. But once you're done with this, you just go kind of crazy. And you'll see some of these animations are copied from the last game, but it looks different. And so it's different, but it's not. It's just, I don't know, if you played a lot of Breath of the Wild like I did, like hundreds of hours of Breath of the Wild, you're going to notice all the little like slow camera zooms that are kind of copy and pasted here and there, which is totally fine. I mean, I don't, like, can you imagine being upset that they copied like a camera pull animation? Like, come on, dude. But it's just, it's funny. You'll pick up on a lot of that little stuff. And okay, Ultra Hand, this is our first ability and it's probably the coolest. And the way this works is super simple. We're tasked with something really basic. Okay, we got to cross this crevasse, as Bear Grylls would say. So we go over here, we grab this guy. We're going to rotate it a little bit, flip it around. Call it good, drop it down. You see the little goo show up there. We're gonna kind of arrange it like this, hit attach, and just like that, we have one really big piece. And you know, if we want to just be like really aggressive with this, we can also take this guy and like put him up there too. And let's just like make this total overkill for what we're doing. We can attach that. And all of this is reflected realistically in the physics engine. So if we flip this, this is massive. So if we flip this around, you can see we could do this. Make those structural engineers happy. Can I actually reach it? Can I? No, I can't. Hold on. Oh, it's too stable. It's too stable. Hold on, I'll tilt it. Can I do that? What if I drop it? It's too stable. I'm too good at this. I knew I shouldn't have done the other piece. I knew it. Here, we'll rotate it this way. Yeah, sorta. We didn't need 3 pieces, but this proves the point that you don't have to solve it the way Nintendo thought you would, because this, of course, is like textbook overcomplication, but it still works. They embrace the fact that you're going to find your own way of dealing with things, and it might make the solution seem really clever, or it might be like way stupider than they were anticipating, but they're just glad that you solved it. And frankly, it's one of the most refreshing things about Tears of the Kingdom, which is that they just totally welcome you breaking the game. Like, you don't usually see that nowadays. Most developers are like hyper obsessive about making sure that you only encounter the things they want you to encounter, and you only engage with the stuff they want you to engage with. And often it can almost feel like you're being babysat, like you're having to play by such strict rules that you don't even really get to have fun in the way that you want to have fun, because you're just doing exactly what they expect you to do. But in Tears of the Kingdom, I cannot emphasize this point enough. You cannot break this game, like, no matter how hard you try. Like, they just welcome you to come up with your own crazy solutions, and it's just so cool. And then they do little stuff like this, like if you're having a lot of trouble getting past this puzzle, they just drop like this thing, like floating across the upper area of the room. So if you don't, I guess, realize that you can just craft one yourself, you can look up, see that one floating by, and take that one while you're on the other side, or at least take inspiration from that one while you're on the other side and realize what you need to do. There's so many little subtle details and touches like that. It's just fascinating. Like, seriously, they've thought of everything. And yes, by the way, there are Korok seeds. Yeah, if you were wondering, because I know they didn't really answer that as far as I'm aware in the lead up to the game's launch, there are Korok seeds scattered around, so definitely be on the lookout for like weirdly placed rocks and things like that. And I guess while we're on the topic of Korok seeds, let me at least offer my 2 cents on something. In the lead up to this game's launch, over on Luke Stevens Live, my streaming channel, my second channel where we post pretty much anything that doesn't fit on this main channel, we talked a lot about the negativity surrounding Breath of the Wild. A lot of people who say that it's totally overrated, it's not anywhere near as good as anybody says, blah, blah, blah. You know, this sort of contrarian take. And let me be clear, you can absolutely dislike a game and you're not just being like a negative Nancy or a contrarian. Sometimes it's just honestly the case that you just didn't connect with it, and that's totally fine. However, one thing that we saw in a lot of the debates that we had with people who don't like Breath of the Wild was that a lot of those people tried to play Breath of the Wild the way that you would play a, frankly, Ubisoft style open world game, where you just go, you follow in many times a guide or a list of objectives and things, and you just work through them slowly but surely, as if you're just checking off things, you know, off a list. And then they got frustrated when they weren't having a lot of fun, when the game just didn't match the experience and the description that people were giving them about their time with the game. And that frustration led to them just growing full of disdain, and they were just not pleased with or happy or satisfied with the game, so they gave it up. And one of the indicators of that was that they would often describe, funnily enough, how they had, for example, collected 150 out of the 900 Korok seeds that are in the game. Or they said, I am at 43% of total Korok seeds collected, and I'm just not having fun yet. And I'm like, the only way that you would like really know that is if you were tracking it and you like had a guide or one of those interactive maps pulled up on a second monitor. And if you were just going around bouncing between objectives, trying to find every little thing and check off those boxes. And frankly, in my humble opinion and estimation, if that's how you're playing this game and Breath of the Wild as well, you're not going to have fun. The point of these games and what makes Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild so phenomenal is that they empower you to just go crazy, to just go wild and do whatever you want to do without much concern for breaking the game or worrying about what guidelines or things you're breaking or not following. They just want you to go have fun. And when you do that, you can have an awesome time. But if you try to play this like your traditional open world game that we get from 50 different studios 10 times a year, you're not gonna have a good time. I know I just said 50 different studios 10 times a year. I guess it would be 50 times a year, unless they're spread out like one every 5 years, then it could work. Okay, the math checks out. I recant what I said. Also, it's a Korok wearing a backpack. Like, what else do you need in life? How awesome is this? I love it. And we're gonna send him on his merry way. Goodbye, Mr. Korok. There you go. Go have fun. And frankly, I like these little side activities with the Koroks a lot more than just the regular Korok activities. Not because the other ones are bad, but just because, frankly, I did so many of them in Breath of the Wild that I don't know if I'm burnt out on them or if it's just nice to get some variety, but either way, I like it. So one little funny thing is the sail, if it's attached, it has wind physics. If it's not attached, it doesn't. So when it was attached on the front, the wind blowing against us was preventing us from moving forward. But when it's detached and I'm carrying it like this, it doesn't have physics anymore. So it doesn't stop us from falling. It's a fun little exploit. I don't know if you could even call that like a problem. It's just the way it is. Like, imagine if you picked stuff up and the wind caught it and you just went flying. That probably wouldn't be that fun. And here we go. We're off to the races. I love it. It's just satisfying. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. I know it looks like maybe you're just gonna play this and then get bored after you've combined like 5 or 6 things, but no joke. Everything you've seen in reviews, in trailers, in previews and everything doesn't even really scratch the surface of what you can expect to be doing within like 25 to 30 hours. There is so much here that Nintendo has specifically asked people not share, not leak, not get out into the open, and for good reason, because it's just the case that this is one of those games that is a blast to experience raw. I'm really sorry, that was gross. I'm gonna do better. Okay, moving on. Okay, it's been a little bit, and as you can see now we're in a snowy area, but the moment I walk into the snowy area, I start taking passive cold damage. Big oopsie, right? Well, it doesn't have to be. I'm gonna use one of these portable pots that I grabbed at that candy vending machine thing, and I'm gonna grab a bunch of these peppers, all 5. Let's just load it up. Cook a little meal to go. Boom. Then we get spicy sauteed peppers. We have 12.5 minutes of cold resistance. And then I can just eat that and I'll be good to go. Look at that. Isn't that great? I mean, the portability of being able to just create a cooking station whenever you need to is awesome. And now, obviously, that was a mechanic that was present in Breath of the Wild, and it's still here. And it just reminds you that they're building on the foundation of Breath of the Wild. They're not trying to replace what they did with that game, swap it out or anything like that. This is taking that foundation and building upon it. This game really is additive. It's a true sequel where it takes all of that stuff and just goes bigger and badder at every step of the way. And man, it pulls it off. Now, what you are seeing right here, right as we entered the cave, were some frame dips right there. You see that? That is after the patch. This was a lot worse pre-patch. So believe it or not, it used to like dip down in certain places to like 10 to 15 frames at times. Now it's like a little stuttery and then it catches up and it's fine and you can deal with it. But this is not like locked at 30. I would expect they continue to patch it a little bit, but even Breath of the Wild had a lot of areas like the Lost Woods where the performance was not steady even years after launch. So it seems like those issues that were present last time are still going to be here. Come on. Open up, baby. Oh my God. Okay, well, I guess in hindsight, I was standing a little close. Fair enough. Fair enough. Touche. Man, and sometimes it doesn't even take anything that clever to just like make your own fun. Like here we just have a glider. I launch it from there. I don't have anything attached to it. If I want to steer it, I can just stand on another part of it and that affects it. Like how insane is that? Like it's just so wild that something so simple could lead to so many little dynamic tidbits of organic dynamic gameplay. It's so amazing to me. It's so impressive. But the fact that this is exceptional just goes to show how crucial a team like Nintendo is in this industry. Like it may seem obvious. Oh, just have like a glider and then you can float down and stand on it to move it around differently. But that's remarkable because that doesn't happen in games. That's rare that you have some sort of organic gameplay discovery where the player thinks, I wonder if this works, and then it just does. You know, it's one of those things. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. And I mean, Nintendo are the kings of doing this, where they just effortlessly present something like this and put it in front of the player and everybody goes, of course, duh, of course that's awesome. Why didn't we think of that? And then everybody copies it for the next 10 years straight. That's what Tears of the Kingdom is going to be. It's going to be another one of those Breath of the Wild games where everybody's looking at it and being like, okay, that was awesome. We need to figure out how to do our version of that. And this is where we wrap up the tutorial section and we get to just leap off a ledge to our inevitable doom. Just accepting our fate. But this is what's so insane. Like, you see where we just came from? The sky? Well, we're dropping all the way down and it's not gonna so much as hitch. It's not gonna stutter. It's not gonna drop to 240p. It's not gonna do any of that nonsense that we've seen in so many AAA games in the last 12 months, really more like the last like 3-4 years. But it just is gonna work because Nintendo are, I guess, just, it's a team of magicians, I guess is the simplest explanation. Right into the shallow end from 1,000 feet. And just like that, we're in Hyrule. We just were up there and now we're down here. And we have a brand new Hyrule to explore, which is madness. Now listen, as I've said multiple times, I don't want to spoil too much of this for you because I think it's really important that you experience this stuff fresh yourself when you can manage it, whether that's today as you're watching this video or if that's in like a month or two or in a year or two, who knows. But I do think this game is worth experiencing for the first time yourself in its purest form. We've tried really hard to bounce around the spoilers and the sections that might be considered spoilers and just show you stuff that would be considered acceptable from Nintendo's perspective. But to give you my overarching thoughts, I went into this game skeptical as always. I mean, hell, look at my shirt. I'm not a cynic. I'm skeptical, okay? If you like these shirts, check them out, LukeStevensTV.com. If you order one, I'll send you a little personalized thank you video that you'll get in your email after you buy it. Just my way of saying thank you for giving me money. But we have a whole skeptical collection of little products there to check out. So if you want to help support the channel, the stream, all of that, and get a cool shirt, LukeStevensTV.com. But listen, the reason I go into games that I'm excited for skeptically is because I want to avoid the depression and disappointment that comes with hype and unrealistic expectations. I think we've all been burned before. A lot of us were burned with like Cyberpunk 2077 or Fallout 4 back in the day. And I just want to avoid that happening because it just ruins your love and enjoyment for that game. Even if it's pretty good, it can just spoil the whole thing because you were expecting it to be here and then it ends up here and it just doesn't meet those standards. So I always try to go into these games with a little bit of a skeptical disposition, looking at it for the good and the bad, try to evaluate like fairly enough whether or not this is going to live up to my expectations. And the great thing about that is when it does live up to those expectations, it feels all the more impressive. Like if I could have gone into this game expecting 10 out of 10. And if it got 10 out of 10, as it has, and as it deserves in my humble opinion at this point, having played through a good chunk of it, I'm like, okay, cool. But if I go into it expecting a 9 out of 10, being like, yeah, it's probably Breath of the Wild 1.5, but it might be better, it might be worse, but probably just a little bit worse, not as magical as Breath of the Wild. Then when it comes out as a 10 and it's Breath of the Wild on steroids, it makes Breath of the Wild look like an alpha demo compared to what this game has to offer. Now I'm all the more excited. Now I'm pumped. Now I'm giddy with excitement, and I have a new game to obsess over for the next month or 2 months or 3 months, or at least, you know, until you guys tell me to stop talking about it all the time. In my opinion, being skeptical is not a bad thing. It's something that you can do to protect yourself from falsehoods, from scams, from liars, people who tell you sweet little lies, even if their promises sound great because they're promising
16 times the detail.
You got to look at that a little more critically. You have to evaluate it not as just a promise from somebody that you think you can trust, but you have to look at it a little bit more critically. And then when they live up to those expectations, when they surpass those expectations, you can be all the more excited because you have something that is just as exciting as you were hoping it would be. Or I guess technically more exciting than you thought it would be because you're maintaining reasonable expectations. You're not letting hype drive you into this irrational place. But the good news is that Nintendo has managed to do it once again in a way that's utterly baffling. They have somehow made Breath of the Wild look like a pre-alpha demo for what this game has to offer. It takes everything Breath of the Wild did, and besides the technical aspect, the graphical aspect and that stuff, they've managed to crank all of the knobs up and then just rip them off and throw them into the next county. This is why we play video games. This level of excitement and innovation and creativity is why video games are so special and hold such a near and dear place in so many of our hearts. And I cannot recommend Tears of the Kingdom enough. I mean, it really is just phenomenal. And like I said, I am far from finished with this game, and I have no idea how long it's going to take me to work through this, but gee whiz, I have a lot to do because this game is freaking massive. Oh, and look, there's a good puppers right there. That's a good fella. Oh, look, he's rolling around in the ground. Oh, what a sweet little dude. Oh, so cute. But let me know what you think of all of this. Do you think Tears of the Kingdom actually lives up to the hype? Does it live up to the standards set forth with all of these 10 out of 10 reviews? Or have you tried it and you think it's just not quite there? Or perhaps you watched this video trying to get a taste of whether or not it actually is that good and you're not convinced yet, or maybe this totally sold you. I don't know. I want to hear your thoughts in the comments section below. I'll be going through those when this video goes up, so make sure to leave me your thoughts. And of course, I have a podcast now with the one and only Joraptor, a fellow friend of the YouTube channel and a YouTuber himself that makes great content. If you want to see that live, we broadcast it live on my live channel every single Friday, and then it goes up on every single podcasting website imaginable, like seriously, all of them. I'll have it linked in the description box below, and I'll also have the live channel pinned because I will be live when I post this video on Friday, May 12th. So if you're watching it on Friday, May 12th, come by, say hi. I'm probably streaming and you could be like, hey Luke, I saw that video. It's super cool. Oh, and I ordered your merch too, representing. And I'm going to be like, that's cool, dude. Much love. Then we're going to have a bond. It's going to be a crazy day. But okay, that's going to do for me. Much love. Thank you for watching. I'm going to get back to this because I have not had a game I'm this excited to play in a minute. So I'm going to take the good old Nintendo Switch up to the bedroom, and we're gonna have a good evening together. Thanks for watching. Bye.